Hi everyone, this is Starzenith33 Francesca here at Podbean, at Spotify, at Apple, and what is it, YouTube. It's been a while. Okay, YouTube and Amazon Music and iHeartRadio and so many other platforms. And it seems like a lifetime that I have not logged in. I think it's only been about a week. Well, I hopped back in and then I took off for another week. And it feels good to return back. Although my voice is still a little bit scratchy, but we'll work with it. I have some water here, and let's talk about what is going on. There's so much going on. Okay, thank you for returning and listening to the Astro Weather here. Let me just drink some water. I do have to say that this is my second podcast episode that I do today. Okay, so I was podcasting and then there was this interruption that I received. It was a community thing going on and it was drama. Okay, we're not going to go into that, but I could already feel the eclipse. It could be either one or the other. It could be the eclipse in Pisces that is already starting. We're only days away from it, okay? This is why I had to recuperate. I had to get more stronger because that eclipse in Leo wiped me out. Okay, as if I was in a boogie board and I was in a wave in the beach and it just knocked me out. Okay, that's what it felt like. My body was just a little bit tired. I was a little bit tired and I was exhausted, like super exhausted. And I just, sometimes I am tired and I can do a podcast episode, but it's a struggle to, I don't perform well if I don't feel well, I'm just not going to perform well, and I'm not those type of people that they don't care. They'll still do it. You know what I mean? But I just can't perform. My body's not meant for that according to my human design. Okay. And so I have to basically podcast when I'm feeling good. I like to spread that good energy as well. I'm not trying to spread my exhaustion out there, because everything's frequency, right? And so every time, when not always I'm going to be bubbly, but, at times I do like to spread that good vibe, the good energy out there. And if I'm not feeling good in my body, I'm just not going to do it. I used to work like that really hard before I was really spiritual. And it just did not work. That's how I ended up in the hospital, okay? I ended up in the hospital, like blogging 4:00 in the morning, eating cheesecake at 4:00 in the morning. And it was just, having a lot of stress in my life and just, it was really bad. And so now I listen to my body. If I am tired, I'm going to take a break. If I'm tired, I'm going to take a whole week. And I said, because the eclipse in Leo knocked me out in my fourth house, okay, my fourth house of my body, according to medical astrology, I had to take a rest. It also rules the heart, okay? And luckily and blissfully, I do not have heart issues, no chest palpitations or nothing like that. So that's a good thing. But I was just exhausted, like my body was just so tired, like I just had no energy. It felt like vampire energy sucking out of me or something. I don't know. It could have been that too. But anyway, I have picked up energy now. It just had to it had to take a couple of days. But if you really think about it, the eclipse in Leo was on the 12th. And I think, was it on the 12th? I think it was on the 12th. Let me look at. Hold on. Okay. Yes, it was on the 12th. And the reason I had to get up and not like look from far in my gigantic calendar, it is because I am in pitch dark room right now. The only thing that's lit up is my iMac, where I'm looking at the chart and stuff. And I decided to do it that way because it is really hot. Okay. It is really hot. And I don't want to open the window because there was drama in my community anyway. And I don't know. I decided to close the window. And they're just is pretty chaotic, you know. And so I don't want to delve into that, but it's not really a big deal. It was just for parking spaces and stuff like that. And I guess one of my neighbors, he got a brand new car and he parked it where he shouldn't have, and he got somebody else's parking space. They thought it was my dad's car. And so the neighbor was like all mad and kind of screaming at me. I'm like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. You know what I mean? Like, don't point fingers if you don't know, who, and she had it all wrong because that, first of all, was not my dad's car. But I did tell my dad, the lady's mad because somebody parked in her space, go talk to her. And I said, go out there and collaborate with her, right? And, make some sense out of this because I don't think it's your car. He said, "No, I don't have a car." So, I mean, he has a truck, he doesn't have a car. So, I guess I went out there because 'cause I'm like, "Let me follow him," because my dad's a rebel, and I just wanted to make sure everything was okay, and I guess she figured out it was in his car, and she went to go look in, and it was a neighbor that just bought a brand new car, and I don't know, I guess he had to move it or something. I don't know, it was a big old deal. It was too much clout, you know what I mean? Like, it's just too much drama. Like, I don't know, I just feel people that are always, like, screaming and stuff, like, they have anxiety or they're on something or something, I don't know. I feel I don't know, I'm the type of person that if somebody's parked there, I'm gonna find out who did it, who not who did it, but who parked there, and calmly, you know, like a professional, go and talk to people, "Can you just please move the car?" Because that's our space, or something like that, But she was too hysterical and too, ghetto. So I was just like, I just want to make sure that my dad's not gonna snap back at her because he would. And that's why he doesn't get along with ladies really. So, whatever. Anyway, so that was an issue there. That's why I just said, "Please collaborate with her." If just to talk it out, you know what I mean? But my dad laughed at her because he said she's crazy, you know? And so, anyway, it got resolved. So that's a little thing that was happening. And I can feel already the eclipse in Pisces because it's going to be in my 11th house of community. Okay. My 11th house of community, circles, friends, acquaintances as well. It has to do also with achievements and gifts and rewards and all of that as well. And actually, today's word that I pulled today from my word deck is rewards. Okay. So there's some rewards to certain people today, maybe. So, as a matter of fact, I talking about rewards, I got a CMOS. It's a company that it's not the actual company where I bought the CMOS, but it's another company that offered me, they gave me a free CMOS bottle. So I didn't have to talk about it or nothing or sponsor it. Or they weren't sponsor me, but they wanted to give it to me for free. So I was like, okay, I guess they seen me do a video on CMOS and stuff. And they said, let me send you one. So it's working out because it's in my MindMovie, right? Where I haven't finished my MindMovie. That's like one of the projects I'm working on as well. That's what I was doing when I was not podcasting for about 2 weeks. So from December, from August 12 to today, I haven't podcast. I did a podcast, but then I had to take a whole week off. So I was already feeling better in my body, like more energy. But then all of a sudden, I was getting like my throat was getting itchy. So if it's not one thing, it's another, right? So I just said, okay, I really have to take a rest. But knowing me, I don't really take a rest. I was working on a project on a MindMovie, and on my MindMovie, I put there, like collaborating with other companies with doing like as an influencer, promoting products and so forth. And it's the MindMovie is not even done yet, and I'm already getting like offers from companies where they want me to try their products. And, the CMOS, I'll say the Mind Moss, the CMOS, it's a healthy natural product. I use the normal brand that I buy, but another brand is what approached me, and they wanted to give me a free product. So I said, okay, looks like the MindMovie is working. Okay. My manifestation is so simple, so easy. It's just creating a, a movie of yourself and you just look at it every day. It's kind of cool because I have a projector. Okay. That's the latest thing for me. I have a projector and you could watch movies, you could watch YouTube videos, you could watch all of that, right? But one of the purpose of buying it was because of the MindMovie. So once I create the MindMovie, I'm going to upload it on YouTube, and then I'm going to be able to see it on a big old giant screen on it's actually my wall with my curtains, but it looks like a big old theater and the projector is like huge. And so what I'm doing is every morning when I'm finished with my MindMovie pretty soon, I'm gonna be looking at it in the morning and at night, and like I said, I haven't even finished it and I'm already manifesting. So, it's pretty cool. I wanted to try it because there's a lot of millennials that are trying it and they're saying, "Oh my gosh, everything I put on the My Movie came true." And so it's all about visualization, it's all about manifestation, it's all about belief and believing that those things are yours and you can have them, right? And so, I purchased a template from one of the millennial girls that she says she swears, like she's already done 3 of them, and she swears everything that she put on there she got. I think she went a trip to Italy, to Greece. She was losing weight, she was getting fitter, going to the gym. She was getting products also that were approaching her. And she's also an influencer, and a lot of the things she bought a car, and all these things that she put on her mind movie came true. So, it for me, I'm just like, if it works for them, it has to work for me, I like to try different things. Okay. So anyway, enough of that. So that's where I've been, I've been just trying to recuperate and slowly, because it's already been about 2 weeks since we had the eclipse in Leo. So by now, we're already kind of moving away from that energy and now heading into the eclipse in Pisces, okay? Which that one's going to be very powerful. It's the very last eclipse in Pisces, okay? It's been there for, I mean, going back to 23 years. Okay, the last time that Uranus was in Pisces, okay? And if you I'll do another podcast on that when I do the episode for the lunar. This is the lunar, the Leo was the solar. This is the lunar partial eclipse. Okay, so it's a partial eclipse. But it's going to be powerful because it's going to be at the 4 degree of it's at the 4 degree of I don't know why I'm hearing downloads. I'm hearing you had to be strong. You had to be strong. Wow. So speaking of strong, 4 degrees is the degree of strength. Okay. It's durability, it's sturdy, it rules structure and so forth. And so that is a degree where the Pisces eclipse is gonna be at. Okay. So there is this release because it's an eclipse. Eclipses is about letting go and letting go of this control. Okay. And for Pisces, we're going to go free. This is a really great eclipse for Pisces, but it's going to come with chaos. Okay. There could be some chaos depending where you have Pisces. What house you have Pisces for me is in the 11th house of community. So there might be some friction, some chaos around my community. It doesn't have to be something so big. It could be something so small as far as parking space. But another thing too, I feel that that situation could have happened also because of Mars in Cancer. Cancer has to do with vehicles, and Mars is about arguments, fighting, arguments, discussions, and competition, and so forth. And Cancer has to do with families. It has to do with vehicles. It has to do with real estate. So I'm glad it got sorted out though. You know what I mean? It was not a big deal, but it could have became a big deal because we have, let's look at Mars in Cancer. Mars is squaring Saturn, okay? And Mars, let me see if there's Mars is squaring Saturn. Mars is in Cancer. That has to do with families. It has to do with females as well. So there's a challenge there with Saturn, and Saturn, is the big daddy Saturn. It's somebody older. It could be billionaires. It could be people in control. And it rules men and so forth. It can also be pretty evil as well on the dark shadow side of it, because it's very like, it's kind of like it makes you work hard, and it puts you to work, literally. Okay. Another thing too here is that Mars is opposing Pholus. Okay, so Pholus is this. Yeah, I'm hearing something about the degree is important. Yeah, the degree is very important. This is why I talk about degrees, because it makes a difference. A lot of other astrologers don't go by degrees. I do, because I'm very detailed and I like to know everything. Okay. I don't like things that are like very sloppy, like they don't give me everything. It's like, wait, and then I have to figure it out. So anyway, Mars opposing Pholus here. Pholus has to do with the domino effect. It has to do with, the ta-da, look at what we found. It's also, having a bad apple in the company, and then everything gets lost, everything, you lose a business, you lose because, you work with bad apples. And so Pholus exposes that when it comes to business in the sign of Capricorn. And so there could be something to do with that. There could be some demolishing of businesses, bankruptcy, people losing jobs, because Pholus has to do with business. And it's where they employ employees to work at their business. And it could pertain to something with Mars in Cancer. It could be something to do with real estate as well, because Cancer also rules real estate. It could be females. It could be uh, something to do with some exposure, because Cancer is ruled by the moon. And the moon also rules females, femininity. And the moon rules secrets that have came out, which could damage businesses. We're talking about affairs, we're talking about just drama, okay? Something to do with vehicles as well, okay? As I said, Mars in Cancer, you got to be careful driving because it creates car accidents, okay? So that's something that can happen there. It could be like you're in a car accident and then all of a sudden you can't go to work because you got into a car accident. As a matter of fact, I was having a conversation today with a family member about just talking about the past when, I got into my car accident, and how you know, that prevented from me not working, at the most dangerous ports. And, you know, it's 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 only, for me, I feel that it was God. And it was God, like, "No more, you're not gonna work out there no more," and I feel that car accident was a shift for me to do something else, you know, and because I would have never left the job, not on my own, because it was security, working at the ports it was dangerous, but it was job security. It paid the bills, and, and I had money to travel and all this other stuff, but it was dangerous. And I think God didn't want me to work there no more. And that's when I got into a car accident. So that's an example. Mars opposing Pholus is like you don't have a vehicle anymore to go to work. Another thing too is that Mars is coming together with Ceres. Ceres has to do with land, with abundance, fertility. Okay. So it's coming together with it. There's some aggression in your community. There's some aggression in your city, your state, okay, when it comes to land. I do have to say that Mars is squaring Fortuna. Okay, so that's important there. Let's see here. And where we have Mars in Cancer, it's at 9 degrees of international. Okay. So Mars is coming together with Midas, like you have the Midas touch. At 14 degrees of banks, it has to do with money. So that's interesting there. So that could be like a move that you can do like pitching a move with a business where you can get paid or you can get a contract signed or something like that. That would be perfect right now to do something like that. Also, Mars is coming together with silver. And so it's a good time to wear silver as well because, we know silver protects. And, it's interesting where Ceres is in the sign of Cancer, it's at 4 degrees. So 4 degrees is of control. So there could be some sort of control when it comes to real estate with Mars. So there could be some arguments. That's why I say, my situation, I'm glad it didn't escalate. But, you know, this is exactly what could happen. There could be some arguments in your community, people not getting along, something about control, something to do with nationalities as well, like different people from different nationalities, ethnic races, and so forth. There could be some arguments there. And also, Ceres that just entered here in Cancer that has to do with land and real estate. It is making a challenge with Neptune in Aries, okay, in retrograde. So this has to do with the past. So there could be something to do with like fertility. It could be land and real estate near the water. So there could be a challenge with communication because where Neptune in Aries is, it's in the degree of 3, and 3 has to do with communication. So it there might be a lack of communication regarding the past. Okay, maybe there's not a lot of talk about the past, like the waters and so forth. Which is bringing a challenge to the land here with Sarah's in Cancer, okay? So, maybe there's just a lack of communication, you know? And it's so interesting today, I was talking to a family member today on the phone, and she was telling me that well, she actually is my mom's sister, and she was telling me that she used to she didn't she worked also for the canneries, like in Terminal Island, in the fish canneries. But there was a time, I think, like she said, for like 3 months. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. That was impressive. And she mentioned that she worked on the ships like for 3 months. And I was like, wow, you're a hard worker. I mean, I worked at the ships because that's what we did as longshoremen, but I didn't know that she had worked there and for like 3 months. I guess they send them there or something like that. And they had to clean the ships or something like that for like 3 months. And they send these cannery ladies there. I'm like, wow, I didn't know they did that. I don't think my mom did that. But they send her there like, yeah, I used to hop on the ship and I used to clean the ship and everything. So these could be like memories that we're talking about the past. Also because Mercury in Leo, it's at the very last degree of 29, and it's coming together with the South Node. The South Node has to do with the past. The South Node has to do with ancestors, right? So there could be some communication that you're doing with ancestors and reminiscing about the past, and or maybe you find out things that you didn't know. I was like, wow, I didn't know. I'm like, wow, you were a hard worker, and because, I've worked on top of those ships and it is hard work working on top of the ships, but they were cleaning those ships. And that's what she did, for 3 months only though. So I don't know if it was because, they didn't have enough work or something. I don't know why. But anyway, I never knew. I'm like, man, she was a baddie, you know? And she said, when I was younger, that's, they made us do that. And I was like, wow. So I come from a generation of Terminal Island ladies. So it's not just my mom, it was my aunt as well. And then me, working as a longshoreman down there. So, it's about generations, the past, the South Node is about generations and so forth. So I don't know what the square is right now, but maybe there's lack of communication, of not speaking about the past or something like that, and maybe it needs to be talked about to be more appreciative. Because where Ceres is in Cancer in the sign of families, it's in the fourth house. of real estate. It's in your home. It has to do with your roots, your lineage, okay? What you're proud of, and that's where that's at. So let's hop into the moon because the moon's about to wrap up in Capricorn, okay? The moon is, let me see if it's still at 27. Yes, it is. The moon in Capricorn is about to wrap up. The moon is, maybe that's why I decided to jump on here, but I had a, what did they say? What is that phrase? I had to put out fires. I had to put some fires out here in my community. But, I was doing the episode and then I had to stop it and I had to delete it. And I was like, "Oh, I'll just redo it again." So right now the moon is at 27 degrees of communication. Okay. And the moon is coming together with Pluto. Okay. In Aquarius. So the moon and Pluto coming together, it has to do with power and emotions. Okay. And, that's where right now where we're at. And that's pretty powerful when the moon and Pluto come together in the 10th house of elevation, in the 10th house of status, of applause, anything like that. Okay. Also, the moon is coming together with Juno. So this asteroid is about relationships, marriages, okay, supporting, marriages, and that's coming together with Pluto, which is power, transformation, okay? And it's on the 10th house there, okay? So what is going on with the moon is let me see, it is opposing abundancia, which is abundance, but it's going to leave pretty soon, in Capricorn. And then once the moon hops into Aquarius, then we're going to be feeling more innovative, more rebellious, more action based, And when it's in Capricorn, we're pretty much professionals. When it's in Capricorn, we're a little bit more, I would say, mature. Okay. We're more about business, and also that's what makes people, for me, for an example of hopping in and podcasting today, even though, my throat is a little bit scratchy a little bit, but I'm drinking water here. So, I just have to start. I just have to jump back in there. I do have to say something fascinating that I see here. The moon is making a trine to California. Okay. And I do have to say the moon, as it trines California, at 0 degrees of all or nothing, it could be a pretty rebellious degree because it has no energy in it, no frequency. California just entered Gemini. Okay, it was in Taurus. So now we have different energy. Okay, so when it was in Taurus, it was coming together with Chiron. There was a lot of healing that we needed to do. It was opposing Scorpio and it was being squared with Pluto in Aquarius. And so, all the fixed signs, when it was in Taurus. But now it hopped into Gemini, okay, California. And the reason that I have California as the asteroid here is because I like to follow it because I do live in California. And it's going to be very important because, next year, well, here in Los Angeles and also Orange County and San Diego, when we're talking about Chinese astrology, it was founded upon the year of the ox. Okay. And Chinese astrology is very important, it's very impactful. It does impact. Okay. And next year is going to be the year of the goat. Okay. So the year of the goat and the ox, they don't get along. So they're considered enemies, right? Like this year, the year of the horse and the rat, they're enemies. Okay, so even if you live in a town that's a rat, like I do, the town I live, San Pedro, California, it was founded upon the year of the rat. Okay, and just like I think New York also is a rat. That's why there's a lot of rats there. There's a lot of rats over here too, I do have to say. I've ran into a bunch of them just like on the street. And I'm not talking about like the ghetto or nothing like that. No, in areas like up there, like in really nice areas. And so it's interesting. And also like the restaurants, they've been fining restaurants. Because of, mice matter and stuff like that. So yeah, I know it's nasty, but they have to clean it up and stuff like that. So they could continue being in business, right? But that's the frequency of our town. It's rat town, right? Many, many years ago here in San Pedro, there was mobsters, right? Like mobsters from New York and so forth, Italian mobsters that were running these streets, right? And in New York, you know, it's also a rat town. So, it's just you just gotta be able to strategize with it. But that's what happens. There's not much luck this year in our town, even though they try to make it better. But, we gotta be honest. It's not the best year for our town, not for San Pedro. But, we got to make the best out of it because we did have FIFA celebrations over here and people were really having fun and we're enjoying everything, and buying pizzas and, you know, marketing and branding and it was pretty big, sponsored by FIFA, right? And, they're opening restaurants now, but I think for next year for them it's going to be much better, you know. But for Los Angeles, it's an ox. So this is why I included the asteroid of California on here so I can talk about next year and how we're doing, just to follow up, how LA is doing, Orange County is doing, San Diego is doing, because the year of the goat is their enemy. And so what happens when it's the enemy year, you have to take a break. And there's going to be changes that are going to happen, right? And so the goat wants to take over. And I do have to say, the goat is ruled by Iran. Okay, so we're going to be hearing a lot of Iran news next year. And so I feel there's going to be major, major changes in California. Probably Democrats or, the homelessness, like everything that's going on, major, major changes that are going to be happening in California. So, next year they have to prepare because next year they got to strategize because next year, that goat and that ox, they're going to go toe to toe. And so, when we're talking about ox, we're talking about restaurants, we're talking about Wall Street, we're talking about real estate. It could be that the real estate is too high. It could be the taxes are too high, and the goat has some solutions, how to make it better, how to make the real estate better, how to fund these homelessness and put them in beds and these crazy people that are running everywhere around, right? And give them the help and the therapy that they need, especially as the Olympics are coming to LA the year after. Okay. It's going to be in 2028 when the Olympics happen on the year of the monkey. So there's some monkey things to say because there was communication, right? Of whatever happens in 2027. Major, major changes. Okay. But right now, California just jumped into Gemini. Okay. And it's coming together with Uranus. So there's a lot of changes that are going to happen in California. And where we have California is in the second house of money. Okay. It's in I have. So that is where California is. Maybe California starts looking more like Gemini. And when I talk about that, it talks about like people, it talks about communicators, the news, podcasters. Maybe podcasting can grow way more in California. And because it's in the second house of money, it could be investments, earning power, money. It could be vehicles as well, resources, the ability to acquire what we feel we need. Okay. Self-worth and all of that is the second house. So that is where California in Gemini is coming together with Uranus. Okay. Uranus is the shocking, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. And it could be either good or bad. Okay. I would hope good because it's in the second house of money. So that is one of the newest transits that I see here. And Mercury and Leo is about to leave, okay? So when that eclipse starts in Pisces, Mercury is going to be in Virgo. Okay. So it's about to jump into Virgo. And when Mercury goes into Virgo, it has to do with analytics, algorithms. It has to do with detail work, be methodical. It rules. It's in its home there, Virgo. Okay. In Mercury, it also rules Gemini as well. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. So it's going to be home. Virgo's going to go home in Mercury, and there's going to be a lot of talk, a lot of Virgo talk. Okay. There's going to be a lot of clarity that's going to come out. A lot of Virgo talks also because it looks like the sun just entered Virgo. So it's Virgo season now. So we have Virgo season, and gold also entered Virgo. And let me see what other Israel just entered Virgo. So that's interesting. And we have Regulus in Virgo. Wow. So that rules riches and royalty and just wealth, all of that. That rules the star Regulus in Virgo. That's coming together with Israel, with the sun, and with gold. Okay, so it's a good time, to wear gold, coming together with the sun. And then we're just waiting for Mercury to hop into Virgo as well. There's a lot of Virgo. Okay, so with that eclipse in Pisces is gonna be in opposition. Okay, two types of frequencies here. But I like the eclipse because finally there's going to be some change, especially for Pisces that have felt stuck, that have felt blocked, that have felt controlled, especially at the 4 degrees of control. On an eclipse, booyah, that thing falls off. Okay. And so for Pisces, it's going to be a wonderful thing. We're going to be that butterfly, okay, that goes free and no more stuckness. And especially because this goes back to 23 years, going back to Uranus in Pisces. Okay. And so it's interesting because the last time that Uranus was in Pisces, that's when I became a longshoreman. That's when I hit the lotto. I hit the lottery. And I was chosen because of the lottery. It was not because I applied or something like that. I struck gold, literally. But anyway, and so it's interesting. So we're going back to that era, and then I'm going to talk all about this on the other episode of the lunar partial eclipse in Pisces. Okay, more with more greater detail because this is more about just the astro weather, not really much about the eclipse that's coming up in Pisces. I just wanted to get my feet wet, and hop back in there because my body it really got hit with the eclipse in Leo. When it's in your fourth house, that has to do with your body, and I was just like very exhausted, and then I got this sore throat, but it's going away. I'm just drinking a lot of water. I don't know, it could be the change of weather as well. All of a sudden it gets hot, and right now it's very humid. It feels very Miami. And I don't like that weather. I lived in Arizona and I did not like the humidity. It was great for my hair though, I do gotta say. My hair was so shiny, but I don't like humidity. I just don't. It's like it's not hot, but you're sweating a lot. I don't like it at all. So hopefully, we're almost in September, so summer is almost over, thank God, because it's been so hot. I don't know, I'm just not a summer girl. I like lattes and I like scarves and I like, like I don't know, I'm very like Capricorn. So I like boots and scarves and hats and stuff like that. Like I don't know, I get irritated with too much hotness. Maybe my body's too heated. I think it is because in my soul chart, I have a lot of fire. The most I have is fire, and it's a lot. I think it's like 7 placements in fire. Mm. Anyway, so that's what's going on here. I do have to say, let me see if I see something else here with the moon. The moon, where is okay, that's abundancia. Okay, which one was it? There was a placement here. Well, I think it was Mercury. Was it Mercury? Yeah, Mercury in Leo is squaring Uranus. Okay, that's a biggie one. Okay, because Uranus is the kapow, right? Is the planet, the unexpected, and there's some communication with Mercury. Okay, at the very last degree of 29 in Leo, that is challenging Uranus and Gemini. Okay, and it could be something unexpected that you say. It could be, but it's not bad. Okay, it's not bad. It is pertaining to money, okay? And Mercury in Leo is in the 5th house, it could be of Hollywood, in the 5th house of kids, in the 5th house of gambling, the lottery, the casinos, anywhere you take a chance is also dating and romance. At the very last degree there, of some communication on Leo, the frequency of Leo, okay? And it's making a challenge with Uranus and Gemini in the 2nd house of money, okay, of worth. And the reason for the challenge, it could be because the 5th house rules dating and it rules romance and everything. So there's this communication that is bringing a challenge regarding something unexpected on a Gemini, on their worth, on their value. I think it's very important, this whole situation with Hayden Panettiere or something, Panettiere, that actress that passed away. I think ever since she passed away, a lot of people are being more aware of dating life, aware of who you could trust, who you cannot trust, and they're looking at patterns and situations like that because a lot of people are they could relate to her. And they're like, "I could relate to her. Oh my god, yeah, that happened to me too." And I don't know, sometimes I think, was it meant for her to pass away in order for us to have these type of conversations? Probably. And so it is about respecting yourself, and, they had compared her to I seen a video on YouTube, and well, I seen several of them about her, but one of them was comparing her to Marilyn Monroe they say she was making Hollywood a lot of money. And some people feel that the reason she left was because of money, because they wanted money, you know? And usually, when an actor, passes away, they become more famous. Because I didn't really know who she was until I seen her picture. I was like, oh, she passed away. And I didn't, I never seen the movie Scream because I'm not into scary movies or her TV shows or nothing like that. I don't know. I'm not really like watching shows on Netflix or nothing like that. And I didn't watch none of her shows, but once I seen her face in an article, I was like, "Oh, she passed away?" I think I seen her face before somewhere. Because she was not like really famous, like really big, like J-Lo or something. But she was pretty famous like with TV shows and stuff and I think she was making a lot of money. But, there was several videos that they were talking about, like, she needed to know who she was. She needed to be confident in who she is. Is very, very important. And loving yourself and knowing who you are and not accepting bullshit. You know what I mean? Because she accepted bullshit in her life, you know, and she did mention in an interview that she is a people pleaser. That she understands that she is a people pleaser. And it's all goes back to her mom. It all goes back to pleasing her mom because her mom was an actress as well. And her mom wanted her to do very well. Like she was raised to be an achiever. And she had to please her mom, and she wanted to make sure she was one of the best actors at a very, very young age. I think she said she started acting when she was like 5 years old. So that's where the people pleasing started. And because she didn't heal that, she attracted that in men and her ex-boyfriend. And I don't know, just by base, I mean, I'm not here to judge anybody, but You could tell he was an asshole with her. He didn't give a fuck about her. You know what I mean? He really did not. He probably was just with her for the money. Because I think she was giving him money or something like that. And I'm like, she was too pretty to be doing that. But, that's why you have to know who you are and you have to heal your past so you can attract the same, you know what I mean? And not somebody that's going to treat you like shit. And I think a lot of women have gone through that. I've gone through it in my past. But now I don't let myself. And, I don't care how much money they have. I don't care what they look like. If you're an asshole, you got to go. You know what I mean? Out of my life, because I know my worth and I'm worth a lot. And, whoever I'm going to be with, they better treat me like a princess, like a queen. Okay. Not like a princess, like a queen, because I am worth a lot. Okay. I am worth a lot. And, just because I may not have the best, material things, for now, doesn't mean that I'm not going to get it soon. And I'm not going to be with somebody that might want to criticize, because this is what I see. I see some kind of criticizing here with that Mercury and Leo, very elevated. And it could be kind of like criticizing Uranus and Gemini or somebody that's younger regarding their their self-value, or how much worth they are, right? And so there's a challenge there. Okay. There's a challenge there when it comes to dating, when it comes to love, romance, all of that. For me personally, if you're not into somebody, you don't have to talk crap about that person. You just don't give interest into that person. You know what I mean? Don't play games or anything like that, because these are the situations that happen. But as females, we have to know our worth. you know we have to know our worth. And if somebody doesn't accept your worth or whatever it is, we'll move it along and go on with somebody that will. Because in this world, we're not here perfect. Okay. In this world, we are here to evolve. And the only perfection is God. And you could look so perfect, right? But deep inside, you could be so broken, you know? And I just feel there's a lot of healing that has to happen after Hayden's passing. And I think she was an example of somebody that didn't know who she was. And unfortunately, bad things happened. And because had she know who she was and her power and her value and so forth, she would not be picking guys that only want to use her for her money or for her worth. You know, she would be picking, not picking, they should be choosing her, right? And so I think it's very important that we still continue those conversations, because we probably would not have those conversations, because there's a lot of people, a lot of young girls that are agreeing like, oh my gosh, I could relate to her, or this and this. And unfortunately, this happened after she passed away. And because, she was an abused female. And, it's sad. It's sad that I feel a lot of narcissist men, they attract a lot of like codependency females that are nice, that are like super nice. You'll see them with a narcissist. Okay. You will never see them. You will never see a narcissist with a tough chick, or just a boss. You know what I mean? You will never see a narcissist, you know? And the narcissist will always choose someone that they can control, that doesn't know who they are, that is like nice. Will never strike an argument with them, will do whatever they want to do. And I know because I've seen it in patterns in my family. Okay. And this is why I don't let myself. You know what I mean? And so I think it's very important. And I'm a curse breaker for my family. So I said, with me, the buck stops here. It's not going to continue, you know. And unfortunately, things like that happen. But, no matter what, we still have to love our family no matter what. But, it's good to see these patterns so they will not repeat over again. Okay. So that's what I have for today. I just wanted to just jump in there and talk a little bit on the astro weather and what's going on with the moon in Capricorn. We could have serious talks right now before it moves into Aquarius. Once it moves into Aquarius, by tomorrow, it will be in Aquarius. And the energy is going to be so much different. It's going to be so much rebellious. It's going to be so much in your face or just communicative and so forth as we prepare for the eclipse in Pisces. Okay. And so, you know, that's what's going on. Okay. So I hope you guys are having a great day. And if you guys did like this episode, do share, do subscribe. It is for free. Okay. You just got to download the app and you will never miss an episode. Okay. You don't have to wait till I post it in Facebook or X or other platforms. But, if you have the app, you could just look for me there, subscribe for free, and you'll always get a notification. You always get a notification of when I post it. And I'll be doing these weekly. Okay. And yeah, and talk about just the energies and storytell. And, I'm jumping back in slowly. Right now I'm drinking a lot of water because of my throat. But I had to jump in there because my Mars right now is on the moon. Okay. And so it's about taking action right now, no matter how you feel, right? So anyway, I hope you guys are doing great. And I think I said that already. See, that's what happens when you don't podcast for a while, you kind of forget a little bit, like you get used to like not podcasting and like, oops, time to go back in there. But if you do want to go deeper, okay, I do have to say, you could go to my website, okay, at www.starzenith33.com. And if you want consultations, you could set up a consultation and an appointment there. I go by appointments, okay? Because, I have priorities, other priorities as well. But I do chart readings on there as well, private chart readings that pertain to you, not the whole collective. Okay, this is all for the whole collective, right? When it's private, it's more personalized and tailored to you, and different things are happening in your chart. So you can do that or just a consultation just to see what I see maybe in your chart or something. Maybe you've never got a chart read, and it's good to know because when we have these eclipses, you'll know what house it's in, you'll know how it's aligned, you'll know what can happen. And so, yeah, that's the importance of it. So, anyway, hope you guys are having a great day and I will talk to you soon.